say hi. If you can see people that you are happy to see and there's a moment's silence, please feel free to unmute yourself and just welcome yourself into the room. Otherwise, to put your name into the chat group and put your name with where you are from and what you're excited about for today's dialogue into the chat room. So I'm going to call on one or two people just to welcome you into the room. So Nadine, it's lovely to see you here. And Zoe, Omoyemi, so pleased that you're with us today. And we're really thrilled to have this as a particular discussion for the end of the year.
See, we have Asanda, we have Elin Kamau, we have Karima, we have Nayo with us. Quite enough. We are very delighted to have all the participants in our today's event. That is the 8th dialogue session, the final in the year. 8th and the final in the year. So we are very delighted to have you from wherever you are. Then don't forget to pop your name and where you are joining us from.
So we were welcomed in there by some beautiful music from the Leap Choir, which Leap Maths and Science Schools are one of the initiatives that are going to give us some prompts today, thinking about alternative education models for Africa. And we are aware that they are just prompts. So there are hundreds and hundreds of amazing initiatives on our continent that represent alternative ways to look at education, alternative things to bring into education, and we definitely have a chance later on for more people to share some of their thoughts and ideas. But looking forward to hearing from two specific initiatives today, and really pleased to have everybody with us to have this conversation. It's an important conversation for our continent. So I'm going to pull up our first screens. We're really keen to hear from everybody. And so let me just pull this up for us and move on from here to our music. Oops.
Our lovely music from the continent.
Absolutely. There we go. And do I see Aziz on the call or not yet? Not yet.
Aziz, are you in the call? Not yet, not yet.
Not yet.
You'll be joining us in a few.
Fantastic. So good evening, everybody. It is really fantastic to have you with us this evening. We are celebrating our 8th Africa Voices Dialogue today. We have quite a number of people who've RSVP'd, some amazingly interesting comments coming through from all of you, and some really interesting people to prompt our discussions today, people who have kind of a lot of experience in different spaces on the continent in delivering alternative education models. And so welcome Adonayo and John from Bramble Network and Leap Institute and Leap Maths and Science Schools respectively. And welcome to all of you. It's great to see so many wonderful, friendly faces. I suspect we're going to have a lot of people joining in the next sort of 20 minutes or so. And Andrew, if you can just help us to keep welcoming them in. And today's conversation really is quite an exciting one. We are giving some thought to alternative education models, but not just sort of the global narrative about alternative education models. We're looking at this through the lens of what might alternative education models for our specific continent look like. What I would like to do, though, before we launch into our discussion is just give us 5 minutes to land together, to greet each other. I know that many people who participate in these dialogues are so happy to see each other during the course of the dialogues. And so I'm going to invite us all into a quick breakaway room, just with 2 or 3 people in every breakaway room, to allow us to greet each other and land together in this space. And if you could, really just to hear each other's voices, a quick intro, 1 minute each, your name, where you are from, and what interests you about this concept of alternative models of education for Africa. So I'm going to give us 3-4 minutes in a breakaway room. I'll be adding people in as they arrive in the main plenary, and then we'll welcome you back in a few minutes and kick off the session properly. Okay, so the breakaway rooms are opening. We'll see you back soon. Una and Theo, are you able to find your way into a breakaway room quickly just to say hello? And then Aziz, we are just doing quick greetings. So we're dropping into breakaway rooms quickly for everybody to greet each other. For those who are left in this room, please feel free to just pop on your video, your cameras, and we can just greet each other in this room where we are, because rather than kind of trying to find our way into breakaway rooms. So my name's Robin, and I'm based in Johannesburg in South Africa. It's really, really nice to be with you all. And I am going to hand over to Uche, if I can, to ask you to introduce yourself. Uche? Okay, I think that you don't have sound yet. So Karen, if I can ask you to introduce yourself quickly into the room.
Hi, Neil here.
Yay,
Hi, Robin.
Neil.
I was the only one in my room.
Oh, sorry, they didn't join you. Well, welcome back, Neil. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm quite well. I've had some very interesting times. I was at a conference on knowledge building last weekend and presenting in Canada.
Oh, fantastic. That
It
sounds
was really
brilliant.
totally brilliant. And knowledge building is a philosophy, and it was totally brilliant. And today, since I don't live in Africa, is our first day of snow.
Ah,
My garden is white with snow outside for the first day of the winter.
you'll have to show us through the window quickly.
I almost can. Can you see it there or not really?
Oh,
There,
yes.
there's
Fantastic.
a forest outside my house, and there is the snow.
That is amazing. That is beautiful.
This technology only started for me. My first Zoom conference was in March 2020.
Well, there you go. We've all had like a breakneck adjustment to Zoom.
Well, we have, and I've only ever been to Africa twice. And on both occasions, the second one I spoke to you.
Yeah. I'm going to quickly pop out Chakri. Is anybody else and Tabisani, if you are able to talk, would you like to introduce yourself? Or Khoitse, Karen, or Aileen, if you can unmute and just do a quick intro. I'm just going to help Jackie Val in room 7, and then shortly I'm going to pull us all back into the main room in any case.
Before what is the unique
so
of what you do?
So the uniqueness, the learning model was basically like we didn't have lectures, and we didn't have lectures whereby it was like in traditional universities a lecturer comes
Just saying welcome to the other people who are on this screen. So I'm Neil, and I was a small school principal for many, many years, and now I'm doing lots of different education things. That sums me up, really. Can't hear you, Robin.
I say, who else did you find who was alive and kicking in the room?
Well, I have nobody's actually answered me. There's people there.
Yeah, I think we have the those who are busy with other stuff and
That's no problem.
joining.
I was almost going to go to the WISE. I'm going to go to it online. I'm not going to Qatar this time. Are you?
No, I was really, I would have loved to have gone to the live event, but I'm very grateful I didn't because South Africa's been firmly locked down once more. So, yeah.
I see. Well, yeah, I know. But it's funny because I'm really interested in what you're doing, and I live in this remote part of Scotland. That's not average. I'm in a very, very, very rural part of Scotland, very far northwest. But actually, funny enough, gives me a different perspective. It's a very intense community where I live.
Yeah.
And very rural, and we were very connected. In my school, we did a huge amount of stuff with IT.
Okay, that's brilliant.
I know, it's all good. That's what took me to Qatar.
Good to have that
Okay,
juxtaposition of the two.
Yeah.
So welcome back.
Connections from
Sorry.
very interesting connections from all of our. I'm seeing very interesting connections from all over the world, and we are so much excited. Welcome back to our main session, Robin.
Absolutely. Welcome back, everybody. I know that that it's always a little bit of a grapple going in and out so fast, but I just thought it was important for us to land with each other, at least for a couple of us to land with each other before we kind of get into the meat of the session. So I am going to hand over. Aziz, I see you are in the room. So if you would like to introduce us to the concept, and Andrew, if you'd like to add a few thoughts to this concept of what do we mean when we talk about alternative education, and specifically alternative education for Africa. Aziz, over to you.
Yes, Robin, thank you so much. And hello, everyone. I'm so happy and glad to have you all and to meet you again in this new session. I hope you don't hear an echo because I'm in a very big room at the university where I work. I hope the sound is fine. Great. So as you see, the slide that we see here is inspired by Sir Ken Robinson, and you have the title Educare versus Edicere. I'm not sure I pronounced these correctly because they are in Latin, but these are kind of, this is the main debate we have today, the main debate about education, whether education should be focused on teaching literacy skills, which will be literally translated into educare in Latin, or should it be caring about humans and teaching humans as humans, which is edicere, yeah? So that's the debate we have, and I have these 4 quotes from Ken Robinson because I want to focus on a number of issues. So the first one is creativity now is as important in education as literacy. The second is imagination is the source of all human achievement. And the third is to improve our schools, we have to humanize them and make education personal to every student and teacher in the system. Education is always about relationships. Great teachers are not just instructors and test administrators. They are mentors, coaches, motivators, and lifelong sources of inspiration to their students. And the last quote says, our task is to educate the students' whole being so they can face the future. We may not see the future, but they will, and our job is to help them make something of it. In the next slide, we're going to see the keywords that we can glean from these quotes. The first one is humanizing schools, and the second is personalizing education. The third is coaching and mentoring and motivating and inspiring students. The fourth is focusing on educating students' whole being for the future. The fourth is education is about relationships. And the fifth one or the sixth is tap into imagination and creativity. So this is, we may think of this as the framework for what education should be focused on if it wants to combine both educare and educere. And the question is, to what extent do our schools today focus on these objectives? And to get the answer, if we want to answer this question, we move on to the next slides, and we're going to focus on two more quotes from Sir Ken Robinson, who says, "We don't grow out into creativity, we grow out of it, or rather, we get educated out of it." And that means that education, the way it is done today in the whole world, probably there are exceptions, but generally speaking, the education that we have at schools today, it is an education that gets students' creativity out of the kids, of the students. So instead of growing this creativity, we just, let's say, rob those kids out of creativity. And the second is, one of the roles of education is to awaken and develop powers of creativity. And instead we have is a culture of standardization. And standardization is probably an important point, or an important word to focus on, which means that by focusing on standardization, we focus on educare instead of focusing on educere. Sorry if I'm using these two words, which are Latin, but they are very, very important to keep in mind, because etymologically speaking, when you think of educating, which is the English word to educate, comes from these two Latin words. And we need, I think, to probably mine, let's say, and explore what these two words mean in order to understand what alternative education should be about. And one more slide, probably the last one, Robin, please, is I'm using this quote from John Dewey, who is the philosopher, educator, who says, "If we teach today's students as we thought yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow." I am not going to elaborate more on this, because I know that our guests are going to share experiences and ideas with us that are going probably to lead us towards thinking more about these issues. But of course, if we want to teach kids today differently, because tomorrow is going to be different, we have to teach them differently. We cannot teach them the same way we were taught, or with the same way we teach them. And Andrew, if you want to add anything, you're welcome.
Thank you, Aziz, for such a great and precise presentation. You remind us of those great educators, Sir Robinson and also John Dewey, who also said that we should not prepare our kids for tomorrow, but for today, because their tomorrow is for today. Tomorrow never comes. Their tomorrow is today. And I'm very glad what you have said. Education is about relationship. If you cannot relate well with the students, you are not teaching. You need to understand their needs, and you need actually to teach, and you need to interact with them from their own perspective. And that's why we talk about student-centered learning, which is a progressive kind of teaching students, as opposed to 20th century teaching and learning, which we are using in our classrooms. And it's quite sad, because in as much as we continue using conventional approaches in teaching and learning, we will never go far. We are in the 21st century, and the 21st century forces us to expand our imagination. The 21st century forces us to acquire the competencies. You have talked about creativity. There are quite a number. We have creativity, we have character, we have communication, we have critical thinking, we have collaboration. I mean, all those kind of competencies is what we need our students to have them today, not tomorrow, because tomorrow never comes.
Thank you so much. So, so just quickly, we sent out a survey, as we do prior to each Africa Voices dialogue, because these dialogues really are not about presenting a particular point of view. What we are hoping to do is ignite conversation, connection, the opportunity to be engaged in conversation with each other right across the continent, with people whose contexts are maybe very different from our own, but who still have a continental lens, an African continental lens on the education that they are engaged and involved with or interested in, as well as people from outside of our continent who are interested in what is developing on the African continent. And so this session's RSVP questionnaire really highlighted such rich content from all of you, such rich thought. It was absolutely beautiful to read the diversity of thought and also the congruence of thought that's coming through around how do we educate in a way that's really appropriate to the African continent and appropriate to our time, our context. So in terms of being aware of alternative education methodologies and approaches that are being used in our own countries on this continent, the split was about half-half. One can virtually guarantee that every country on the continent has a form somewhere, something, if not many things, that are happening around alternative education models. But the people who were aware really shared a lot around what kind of content is coming through, what kind of thinking, what kind of approaches are coming through in their countries for alternative teaching models. And as Andrew and Aziz have both mentioned, a lot around active teaching and learning, a learner-centered approach, competency-based curricula, so those are sort of the 7 C's or the 5 C's, whichever you prefer. Very interesting, a lot around community-based learning ecosystems and community pastoral schools, and really breaking down the walls of schools to look at entire regions, communities, places as learning environments. There was a great deal of feedback around traditional learning approaches that take a conscious inclusion of heritage, blended learning models, project-based learning, inquiry-based learning, and democratization and civic education models. So really there's a rich amount of content and a rich amount of experimentation happening on our continent. And then, thinking the other thing, which I'm not going to go into great detail because there was such richness in this question around what elements were felt to be important, specifically for education for our continent. And I think we've had a number of discussions around this in our planning, and what has come through very clearly in your feedback to this dialogue is also very much around the decolonization of education for our continent, but more importantly, the rehumanization, the re-Africanization, the context-specific ability to educate, the inclusion of heritage, the inclusion of art, music, and the inclusion of agency and learner autonomy and learner centricity. So we're really excited to be engaged in this conversation with you today and to hear your rich thinking, and for everybody to hear everybody else's rich thinking, which is what we hope will be achieved during the session. So I'm going to just... Yep.
Robin, I like the way you have said Africanizing our education, because I think we are not yet there.
Not yet.
But we have started the conversation. The conversation is starting, and today we are continuing with the conversation. We are far away from there, but I'm happy that we have started the conversation. We need to Africanize our education, because Africa has its own issues. Africa has its own challenges, and those challenges can only be solved through thinking like Africans and acting like Africans. We know, because we know the context in which we live in. Absolutely. And that's what we talk about. That is what we are talking about, which answers the needs of the society.
Fantastic. So I'm going to give over to Andrew in a few moments just to introduce Odenayo and John and their teams from Bramble Network and Leap Maths and Science Schools, as well as the Ubuntu Maths Institute. But what I'd like to do first, because we have a number of new people in our dialogue today, many beloved faces that have been with us regularly, and a number of new faces who we are delighted to have join us today. What I'd like to do is just kind of give everybody a sense of how these dialogue sessions run and what the intention of the dialogue series is. And so to start with the intention, which is always, the most important component. What is the purpose and intent and heart behind an initiative? And so our heart, is to create a space where the voices of African learners, educators, community members, and everybody who is interested in the issue of education on our African continent are seen, heard, and loved. And so the way that the dialogues run is much less about kind of projecting expertise or teaching or bringing theoretical knowledge to the forefront, and much more about experiential stories, people's lived experience, an opportunity for people to share their day-to-day realities, what they are observing, what they're thinking, what they are feeling, what they're excited about. And so to support, connect with each other, build friendships and connections across the continent, and really weave a web of relationship around our continent so that we can support each other as educators, as learners, as communities, and we can learn from and inspire each other. And so the dialogues are very relaxed. They are imperfect, which is part of their beauty. And we do like to try and make as much opportunity for our community members to engage with each other. There's never enough time. So our sessions are 2.5 hours long. They feel like they're half an hour and we all get kicked off before we're ready. But luckily we have them quite regularly. So if you enjoy it, please come back. It's cumulative, the effect of being in conversation with each other. My name is Robin Whitaker. I'm based in South Africa. My colleague Abdulaziz Zori, who you heard earlier, is based in Morocco. And Andrew Wambua, who's going to speak to you now and introduce our two guest speakers, is based in Kenya. And then we have some amazing team members based elsewhere around the country who we are delighted are progressively becoming more and more part of this collective. So Andrew, over to you to introduce our wonderful guests.
Thank you, Robin. And as Robin has said, my name is Andrew Wambua, connecting with you from Nairobi, Kenya. And we are very delighted to connect with you from wherever you are. We are happy that you are part of our team. Today we have two amazing guests. One of them is Odunai Ali, who is the founder and director of Bravo Network. Odunai is the director at Bravo Network, and she's also a Leap Africa 2020 fellow. Bravo is an organization that focuses on the physical, emotional, mental, and social development of children living in rural and marginalized communities. And it focuses on raising a generation of creative and critical thinkers in Africa. The second amazing guest, and Orinayo is connecting with us from Nigeria. The second amazing guest is Joel Gilmer, who serves as executive director of the LEAP Science and Maths schools. LEAP stands for Laga Education Assistance Program, and it's a collection of 6 non-fee payment secondary education schools located in 3 provinces in South Africa. The LEAP program targets the development of gifted and talented students to attain excellence in academic excellence. And it provides enrichment and acceleration programs to enable students to realize their full potential. And now we take this opportunity to invite Odunai to present what she has today. Then after that, we shall go to John. Odunai, the floor is yours. Odunai?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Thank you so much, Andrew, for the beautiful introduction. So I'll start with a little background. I studied education in Nigeria, a country with the highest number of children that are not going to school. So in 2016, I met a little boy. His name is Dada. Dada was living with his grandmother and in a very poor condition. So I was attracted to Dada for 2 reasons. The first one was he had, this really beautiful brown eyes. And, it was unnatural dreadlock. So meanwhile, for me, when I was about his age, I also had that kind of dreadlock, and I was living with my grandmother. But I was going to school then. What was different in his own case was he wasn't going to school. So I was really curious to know why he wasn't going to school. And, you know, of course, I found out that it was because the grandmother was not able to pay for fee. So I felt that, okay, I can help out. So that's how my journey started. I started by enrolling Dada in a school, and with the help of my friends and family, we began to help other children in a similar condition. So by 2017, we had provided scholarship for 36 children, and we had also mobilized educational supply for 300 children. So I felt that I was, you know, doing something good. I felt that I was making a change. But guess what? I was so shocked when I realized that about 70% of these children, even though they were in school, they were not really learning. So for some of them that were in, the rest, about 30% that was in, you know, top schools, which was much more expensive. They were doing well academically, but for the others, there was nothing to really point that these children were learning. So for me, that moment was, you know, an awakening. I became suddenly aware that schooling does not automatically means education. And, you know, I became fully conscious of the fact that our current school system is not able to deliver the kind of future I really wanted for these children. So I began to research. Also with the fact that our school system was, you know, based on rote learning, memorization, you know, top-down teaching method. And the main focus was for students to pass their examination and move on to the next class. And that was not what I wanted for these children. So I started researching to see that what are people doing in other regions? Are there alternatives? What's happening in other places? What can I do differently? I mean, at the time, I didn't know so much about alternative education, but luckily, you know, I started seeing that there were some existing models. So I began to research about these approaches. So I visited several schools in African countries and Asia, and I spoke with teachers, I spoke with students, I spoke with parents, you know, to have a feel of what was, you know, happening in their various systems. You know, so I discovered a lot of philosophies, part of which are people, you know, Robin listed the other time, you know, Montessori, Reggio Emilia, a lot of them. So I also discovered that, you know, I found out that, you know, education can, after speaking with all of these people, I know that education can truly be fun, engaging for learners, and with little investment, we can achieve much more better outcome. So I took all of these learnings, all of these, you know, evidences and experiments, and created, I founded Bramble in 2019. You know, so I started Bramble with the aim to address the lack of access for children in rural communities, and also to also contribute to the conversation about what education really means. So in 2019, we were able to, we opened the first alternative learning space in Arikonki village. That's towards the southern part of southwestern part of Nigeria. And this particular community had existed for donkey years without any. And so in 2019, we started with a bunch of, children that were not so happy that they didn't know what we were bringing. So they were wondering, their major superpower was the curiosity and enthusiasm. They wanted to know, okay, this woman told us that this is a different system. This is not like a school. So they wanted to know what was different about it. And it was also beautiful because we were starting with, many of these children had never been to school before. Some were, going to school, but they probably go to school like 2 weeks in a whole term, that's about 3 months, because they are not motivated. They don't like school, So we started with this bunch of children, and so far, from there till now, we've seen a lot of changes in these children. We have seen these children who were not interested in schooling, who were not interested in anything called education. We've seen them develop innate passion to really learn. We've seen them develop their communication skill. We've seen them, show creativity in different ways. We've seen children take up leadership roles within the communities. We've seen these children, coming up with solutions to their immediate problems in the communities, and of course, all of this is in addition to developing the literacy skills. But we know that one of the things that we believe in Bramble is one of the ways that we test our success is not just literacy and numeracy. That's good, it's growing, but we want to see these children, do better with their mind, the power of their mind to explore more. So what were the things that we have done differently? So I mentioned 3 things. We sort of we moved our focus, based on content now, our focus much more than academics. We focus on values in Bramble Learning Space. We focus on values. Values such as kindness, such as empathy, such as true happiness, integrity, social justice, honesty. A large chunk of our day, we spend it on talking about these things because we know that, true education it's not just about what you can do with your brain, it's about who you are becoming while you go through the system. So the second thing that we have done differently is our methods. So instead of, the regular teaching styles, we allow our learners to actively participate in their education journey. We believe that they are a major stakeholder in this process. So we ensure that learning is based on intrinsic motivation. We also try to move them from being recipients of knowledge to being pushing their own journey, like they are self-learner, they are going after knowledge on their own. So it's not until you waiting for someone like it's in this case to tell them that, okay, you should be reading now, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. We have seen them move towards that end where they are actively doing things for themselves. And this makes us really happy because for us, it's important that these children grow to become lifelong learners. And the third thing that we have, sort of experimented with and done differently is around assessment. So in terms of assessments, In Bramble, we do not do standardized examination at the end of every term, every session. So instead of the regular standardized examination, we tell these children, we encourage them to do projects to apply the knowledge that they have gained to real life experiences. We encourage them to try to solve problems with whatever they are learning. And they also do a lot of peer review. So finally, so not to take too much time, finally, I believe that some of the things that have really helped us is that we have kept an open heart towards learning. We have been very flexible. I mean, the whole journey has been an adventure for us, and adventure full of many costs. So what's key for us is every time we meet a new child, every time we go to a new community, we keep adapting to the need of the child, to the need of the community. And we know that our work is to create an environment that honors diversity, an environment that truly appreciates the diversity as a human, an environment, an education system that feeds the human spirit. And we're also aware that much more than there's no one perfect solution. And it's not about taking one model and replicating in every community. It's about empowering community leaders, empowering educators, empowering even the learners to tweak whatever we are bringing to the need of their own particular community at the time. So I'll stop here for now while Robin shows a video made by one of our learners for all of you.
Fantastic, thank you. So,
hi, my name is Ola Elizabeth. I am a learner at Bramble Learning Space. I'd like to show you my favorite spot at Bramble Learning Space. Can you see this map? I have learned a lot from this map. I have researched from many countries in this map. For example, China is the one of it, and United States of America. Oh, are you from United States of America? I wish you will come to Nigeria, and I will tell you what I have researched on in this map. I'd like to show you my other favorite spot at Bramble Learning Space. Say hi to my friend.
Hi to my friend. My name is Akibat. I am 7 years old. I like to dance.
Oh. Okay, let's go to the butterfly. This is butterfly mora. It means growth. It means growth. And for me to attend this Bramble Learning Space, I'm very proud of it because before I cannot express myself, I cannot free with people and communication, but now I can express myself. I'm already making friends, and I'm still learning how to make friends. Before, I didn't know anything about technology, but now I've known a lot of technology and even science. I know about climate change, ozone layer, how ozone layer affects Earth. Before, I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to reflect with people. I didn't know how to express myself. But now, I can communicate. I can express myself anyhow I like. And I cannot even read book before, but now I've even read 10 storybook. Is it not amazing that I've read 10? Let's move to our peace morale. Okay. Peace morale. I know that everybody in the world needs peace, and I wish everybody draw this morale in their heart, and we should be kind and show kind to people. Lastly, I want to show you our bottle building. Oh. Have you seen a bottle building before? If you have not seen it, you have seen it now. And do you want to do a bottle building? If you need to do it, it's very easy to do. This is a bottle filled with sand, and if you need to do it, you get a bottle filled with sand, and you are free to go. And if you need people to help you, you can research about anybody to help you, and you are free to go with your building. Bye. I have to go now. Goodbye.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. So we'll reopen
Yeah.
here. Thank you. And Omiyemi, I don't know if you would like to give your just a quick input from your side. And then we'll open for a couple of questions. Not long, couple of minutes before we go into breakaway rooms to discuss a little bit together. Oopsie. So Omiyemi, are you happy to share your story briefly?
Yes. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Okay,
Hello.
I'll be sharing my personal story about the school system.
Great.
Okay, so, hello.
We can hear you. Carry on, Omiyemi. We're listening.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I would like to share my personal story about this. Okay, my personal story about the school system. Okay, so it all started after a few years that I was enrolled into the school system. I was just young.
Oh, Omiyemi, I'm so sorry. The sound is not great. It's coming and going. I really am so sorry. It's not great. So maybe what we can do is just invite a couple of questions. If anybody has a question for Odunayo and would like to share that with her, we can invite a couple of questions before we go into breakaway rooms. So just pop up your hand if you'd like to ask a question, and
Hi.
we'll find you.
Hi.
Omiyemi, I'm afraid your sound is not so great, so we're going to maybe just wait a little bit later and see if you can come on a little bit later when the signal is better. Uche, if you'd like to ask a question. Uche Jumbo.
A question or a feedback from the session. Okay, you can ask a question or a feedback from the session.
Olivia?
Yeah. Good evening, good morning to everyone. I'm sorry I'm not able to put my camera on because of network challenges. I am from Kenya, and I'm so thrilled with the presentation because she has actually added a number of values and life skills that are really necessary for the 21st century world. Because we are working in a world, especially in Africa, where we really need our children to grow having this and holding these values for work and lifestyle. And skills for life. Because actually, from my country, most of the children are going to school, but they are not learning. And if they are learning, it's because people are putting so much efforts in papers. What kind of papers do you have? Do you have a first class? So people will measure your ability and intelligence based on the grades that you're having. So I'm so happy with the presentation because it's really showing that she's engaging the children through project-based learning and all those other itemized values and life skills that she has embedded in her project and program. So I think for me, I've really learned a lot from her. And that should be a really good way for all of us to pick it up as educators, to also know how best we can, apply all that in our work.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Chakri, would you like to have a brief word? And then I really want to give us more people a chance to discuss this in breakaway rooms together. So Chakri.
Thanks, Robin. So quick question for Audinayo. In India, what we found is children don't come to school because of health problems, especially as simple as diarrhea. So I was just wondering whether health is or unable to manage health problems creates an issue for children to come to school.
Audinayo?
Okay. Thank you so much, Chakri, for the question. So yes, so because Bramble work with children in rural and marginalized communities, so you expect that, you know, there are lots of health challenges in these kind of communities. And yes, parents would rather keep their children at home, going to farm, working at home, than allow them go to school, you know, when there are such issues. And even for some of the children that come to our various learning spaces in the village, so we have cases of, you know, parents not paying so much attention to their children's health, not knowing what to do when there are like cases of stomach issues, headache, and all of that. So in addition to providing education, we are also teaching them all of these things. You know, what can they do when they're sort of that kind of situation, homemade remedies and all of that, because we know that all of these, you know, things will hinder education at the end of the day. You know, we also had to start, you know, teaching parents skills, you know, that's also to empower parents to provide, you know, skills that they can do to make more money, because also they will tell you that these children should be working for me to, you know, survival is like a major issue for them. So as we journey on, there's so many things that come up. You know, like I said, we remain flexible to address issues as they come on per time.
Fantastic. Nana, I see your hand is up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you into a room with Audinayo so that you can ask your question from her directly in the room. And what I'm going to do now is invite us all to go into breakaway rooms and really to just take the opportunity to once more introduce yourselves to each other really briefly. Oh, I don't know why it keeps on wanting to take me back to that slide. There we go. So just introduce yourself to each other briefly, your name, your place on the earth, and what drew you to this dialogue. And then specifically to give thought to the question and to discuss this with each other. If I had the opportunity, to redesign the education system, what elements would I put in and why? So just to invite you all to the rooms, please, we'll have 15 minutes for the breakaway room and 5 minutes, which is really short, when we come back together to reflect before we go on to hear from the LEAP Maths and Science Schools and John and his team. I'm going to open the room now. I will stay in the main room and just help anybody that needs a hand. And please enjoy your conversation. Do connect if you find people that really interest you. Please connect, share your email addresses, share your details. The conversations we would love to see started don't belong only in these dialogues. They should be taking place outside as well. All right, so off to the rooms we go, and I'll be here to help anybody that would love a hand.
Hi, Robin. It's Liza.
Hi, Liza. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I
Wonderful.
really liked that last presentation. I tried to get into my room.
Yeah, you were on your own, so I kicked you out, and I'm giving you to a different room because for some reason I think people dropped. I assigned them all before, but I think some people dropped on and off, and therefore I'm just having to reassign a little bit. So let me know if you don't have an invitation to go to a room yet. Penina, I see that you don't seem to have a room. If you go down to the little 4 blocks at the bottom of your screen, the breakout room blocks, it looks like 4 little blocks, and click on that and you should see your room invitation there. Otherwise, I'll go and find you and I'll move you. Okay, so Neil, I'll move you because I can see that you are not in your room. Has it come up for you? Okay, let me actually pause the recording.
Now, my mate didn't work as much as I did when we were in school. And so whilst I was working hard, they were not working hard enough. And because of that, they failed and they've not been where I have been. So, and that for me, it's not how, it's not inherent in the African spirit. If there's something like that, it's not part of our ideology. And I'm beginning to think that we really need to redesign and re-engineer our education systems like that. We are looking at how does our communities look like and what is prosperity for our communities. For someone coming from a rural background, I go to school and the whole of the community probably is into farming and is into fishing, but the goal of the education I receive is not having any direction or focus on training me to better the fishing in my community or training me to better the farming system, but probably training me to work in a government office somewhere, to work in some big office, wear some suits somewhere, that at the end of the day, my own rural community is being impoverished because only few of us as students from that rural community are passing examinations. Only few people are doing well. And once they do well, they feel that, no, my life is better than this village. So they have to run away. They go to stay in an urban community. So in all other places, I have to end quickly soon. Those who go through the education system, those who, into bracket, do well, feel alienated, feel that they don't belong here. And our rural communities are getting impoverished. The urban communities we're seeing growth, we're seeing economic development in lots of places, but this is not trickling down to the lower areas, to the rural areas that are in need the most. And I feel that it's important for us to begin to think about what curriculum changes we can make to marry school with the community. I don't think necessarily students have to choose between going to the farm and going to the school. How can school come to the farm and how can farm come to the school so that students are learning about their everyday realities and they can go back to improve the situation in their community rather than 1, 2, 3, 5, 10%, 40, 20% of students passing and progressing to the next level while other people are left behind. And I feel that this kind of capitalist, individualistic thinking would actually make us not tap well into our human resources, because we have a huge potential. We always talk about having a youthful population, but if we are not making education relevant to their local realities, I've been in schools where we would learn about flooding and soil erosion, but it's as important as students are going to write and give answers in the examination hall. But there's soil erosion in the community, there's flooding happening every year, and we are being taught that in the classroom, but there's no sense of practicalizing it. So I think I will end here because I've spoken a lot and other people have to make input.
I hear the passion. I hear the passion there,
I feel, we really need to redesign our education system and make it work. Of course, it's working for the middle class and lots of people, but it has to work for the poor people, for the rural people, for the folks who have just farming, has just fishing to their cause. Yeah.
No, that's thank you so much for sharing that, Stephen. And I feel the same way. You know, when we look at what is it that we are teaching our children, you know, when they leave school, where do they go? Because you find people say, you know, you go to school, you know, to primary school, high school, and then to university, and after university you get a job, and then you most likely move to the city. and then you stay there. But what we have done, realizing that that is not healthy for our communities where these children are coming from, we have introduced what we call social development, where we take the kids into the community. They see the challenges that are there in their communities, and they come up with projects that they do as learners. And we believe that once they get to understand what is happening in their communities, when they go to universities and for whatever career they will choose, they will start thinking of their communities first before they can choose to go to other cities or other areas where they can then develop when they're actually forgetting where they're coming from. So we teach them to own the communities and know that they don't have to wait for other people to do anything for these communities other than themselves, because it's also their responsibility. So I believe if we can get them to understand that, we'll have done a good job. But again, I feel, the pain when we have in a system that sort of provide a bottleneck where other learners are excluded. If you look at the numbers of learners that will go, say, into grade 1, and then if you follow that group and check when they get to finish maybe primary level, we have maybe 20% will have dropped out, or they've just moved out of the system. Some because they failed. You go to high school before they go to university, they are again left behind because they don't achieve or attain certain grades. And those people, we don't even think of them and see what is it that they are doing or what can they do to also better themselves. We then focus on those that are going to university, which is most likely about 4%, if I'm to go with the statistics that I've looked at, in a South African context. And it's so painful that the system, especially the assessment system or the exit points, what we then emphasize and make people believe that's what is expected, it's actually excluding other people. I believe that if we can get the kids to learn to use their hands and get a skill, then they will be able to do something for themselves. So there's a lot that we can do, and I think we need to keep pushing and do as much as we can. I say, Robin, you are here.
Yeah, thank you. That was wonderful, Stephen. And I actually wanted to ask Zoe or Sharon, because we've got like a minute or two left in the rooms, whether either of you might be comfortable to just reflect on what Stephen shared. Otherwise, Stephen, I'll ask you, but just briefly. But let's hear from Sharon or Zoe quickly as well. Sharon, or did you guys hear from them earlier?
We were still waiting to hear.
Okay. Zoe, are you there?
Well, saying I'm in transit.
Okay. Oh, you're in transit. Okay. Sharon, are you there? So Stephen, what I loved about what you were saying, and I think it really comes back to this sort of, how do we humanize for the situation where we are, for thriving where we are, rather than trying to funnel people into something that looks like thriving because the system says it looks like thriving, but actually, we just cut more and more people off along the way. And then the people who do thrive, I suspect, often are not profoundly happy in the spaces that they find themselves. And so, I really, really love that. And I'd love, when we go back, we have a couple of minutes. It would be really wonderful if you could summarize what you spoke about in terms of making education available in rural locations, in nomadic locations, so that we educating people for where they are, to thrive where they are. I don't know if that's a summary that makes sense, but if you could summarize, it would be amazing.
I feel you've done a better job at summarizing.
No, I can't speak. I get so much opportunity to speak at these things, so it needs to be you.
Yeah, I second that.
Or Raphael.
I think Stephen has got a very good
Compelling.
point that he can just share. Yeah, his story is very compelling, and I think as a master's student, I think he has done a lot of research as well. So
Yeah.
it would be good for you to just share that, Stephen.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stephen, if you're interested, we have a lot of data and we have very little capacity to write up what comes out of Africa Voices Dialogue. So if this topic interests you and you'd like to write a paper, we've got a lot of stuff for you if you'd be keen.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go back to the main room and I'll see you back there in a sec. Welcome back, everybody. Sorry for the rude rip back again to the main session. It's good to be back in this room with everybody. So let's have just 5 minutes, and we have to try and keep it to 5 minutes, although we're not doing too badly on time. Just for some reflections coming back from the room on what people have heard, on what they've shared, on some exciting ideas that you heard in the rooms. And I'd like to kick off. I'm going to invite Stephen, who was in our room with us, just to share in 30 seconds a summary of what you were expressing. And then just put up your hand if you'd like to share something out of your room.
All right, sure. Thank you very much, Robin. I had to quickly get ready to put my video on so people can see me. So we had really interesting conversations in our breakout room, and Raphael shared an example of how they're trying to make education more relevant and more community-minded for his school. I also made a point about why there is a strong need for us to shift away from the colonial form of education that have been received in formerly colonized African countries. And the point I made was the fact that we've seen a lot of reforms in education systems across these countries, but the main thing, which is the ideology and philosophical underpinnings of education, has not shifted much. And it all boils down to this individualistic and achievement-based notion of go to school, learn very hard so you can progress to the next stage, write your final exams and get good grades, and then you can have tertiary education or some vocational or technical education and get into a good job. And the real essence of the African spirit, which in South African terms will be labeled as Ubuntu, in Tanzania or Swahili will be called Ujamaa, in Akan people will say Nobwa, which underpins, underlines the kind of communal spirit in Africa. It's sort of being broken down or broken apart because education is socializing people and preparing people to do well for themselves and not for their families, especially relevant for rural communities where, for example, people are into fishing or farming or animal rearing. People do not necessarily have to choose between going to school and going to farm, but it's important for us to redesign our curriculum and education systems like that. We marry what is happening in communities with what is happening in schools, so that product from this school can go back directly to the school to effect changes that are relevant to their communities, and education does not alienate people from the communities that they are coming from. So this is in short some of the thoughts we shared in our breakout room, and thanks Robin for the opportunity to share.
Fantastic, just amazingly beautifully summarized. Amazing insight. Thank you so much, Stephen. Anybody else who would like to share something that they found powerful coming out of their rooms? Just
I'll volunteer John from our room.
John Gilmore. Good. John's going to have a good chance to speak just now. So
yeah, I don't want
carry
to
on, John.
say too much, but I think in our room we just recognize that teachers are the pivot point, and the need for change in teachers, and the need for greater insight and some stress being relieved, because teachers are feeling the replacement of the family as a need for school. So the idea that it takes a village to raise a child, I just raised the point that in the absence of the village, the school becomes the village. And that's hard. That's very tough. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Asanda, you have been nominated by Group 4.
Okay, you guys are fooling me. So in our group, we talked about the importance of linking what happens in the classroom to real life situations. We also talked about making sure that learners are taught in a language that is familiar to them, that could be a home language or the official language in that particular country. We also talked about the importance of making sure that learners, they are having fun while they're at school, which will also make them excited about learning. We talked about making sure that all teachers are majoring in psychology so that they are all equipped to deal with social, emotional issues that learners come with. And then the school can extend that to their parents to make sure that there's continuity of what happens at school to what happens at home. Thank you.
Thank you. I love this group's nominating their preferred speakers. So Antoine, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, if it's an Antoine or Antoine, but from group 2.
Hi, it's Antoinette. Thanks. Okay, so what came out of our sharing was a wish for learners, for there to be a focus on self-awareness of learners, and that to be done through the use of stories and the sharing of stories in a confidential, respectful space where they are heard with caring and love and kindness, and with the understanding and trust that what they share will be kept confidential in a group, starting even as young as age 6. And then what the other thing that was shared is the need for, especially in high schools, machine learning, software designs, problem solving, maybe around health access and finding solutions for particular communities' challenges, learning how to do that. And then what was also shared is the need for an understanding of child development and what's appropriate at a certain age, that one shouldn't, this is my particular sharing from how we do things in the teacher training college that I'm working with, is that it's not good to introduce technology too early for children. They have the ability, they can do it, but actually rather to do that when they're older, because you can always learn that, but rather to have movement and stories and craft and various artistic forms in their learning when they're younger, and for learning to be a process of self-discovery for children. So the teacher isn't somebody who's the expert who gives a body of knowledge and then the children have to learn it and regurgitate it back, but rather for the teacher to be a facilitator who then facilitates in such a way that the child solves a problem and then works backwards from having solved the problem and then writes their own main lesson books, their own textbooks from what they've learned. So they actually are facilitated to go through a process of discovery that is very well held. And that we don't use textbooks that, for example, a Eurocentric textbook in a school where people can't identify with it at all. And then also a recognition that even in this model that I believe is needed by all schools around the world, there's been a focus on a Eurocentric model, bringing stuff and not really looking at what different communities need, looking at what the individual child needs in a particular stage of their development, but not really looking at what is the richness in a community and how do we actually acknowledge that and incorporate it or learn from that and change what we're doing, because that's really more necessary for those children and that community in that time. So that was us. Thank you.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Antoinette. Karima, that reminds me a little bit of that statement you made a little while ago when we were chatting about the child is the curriculum. Silvana, it came out of your visit to Karima. The child is the curriculum. Claire, Adhiambo.
Hello. In group 3, we talked about what if we're given an opportunity, what would we change in the curriculum? And we say that in the curriculum, we will want to have an education that is learner-centered and not teacher-centered. Then we look at the technology in the wake of pandemic, whereby learners were not able to go to school because the schools were closed for so long in Africa mostly, and we were not able to go to school. And we say that there is this monster in the room, technology. What is technology? Let us not view technology as the hard and the software. Let's view technology as the head, critical thinking, knowledge accommodation, support this knowledge through human sense, and address it of the mind, address the mind, so that if you are producing a learner as a teacher, let the learner be a learner that can compete competitively in the global market. And this will bring a change in Africa. Let Africa rethink and be resilient in bringing new knowledge in their curriculum. Let not the curriculum be teacher-centered, cognitive development. Like, I'm sorry to say this, mostly you learn about cognitive development that was brought about by Jean Piaget in France. Yet we have contexts that are happening in Africa, and we are not including them in our curriculum that is community-based, that will change our community on whatever we teach our learners. That's all we had in our group. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire. Neil from room 6.
Well, hello, we were a group, and I'm the only one there that was not in Africa. But I said in a rural Scottish context that we took a great interest in Africa. And that was because we had a very different curriculum that came in Scotland. There was about 4 capacities of confidence, responsibility, contribution. And in our group, there was broad agreement when we were speaking about things like social emotional learning, collaboration, engagement with the community, real meaning. So there was great agreement. But then I said, well, if we're redesigning a curriculum, where can we take that next? Well, secondly, we were saying the power of tests and standardized assessment, evaluation, and audit. And I said that in Scotland, and the curriculum agency were not working together. And also, by great coincidence, we're having another big review to revisit that original review. And I wrote a very big submission just over the last 2 days. And this put a couple of thoughts in my head. Whilst we may rail against certain forms of standardized assessment and testing, which are marginalized learners, the system still needs information. I was trying to separate out assessment from testing, and also to think that the system does need information. So thereby, how can we give the system the information that it wants and do it in such a way that we can then still do what we want? And to think about these sort of intelligent dialogues that can work across structurally, horizontally, and up and down vertically across our school systems. So that was a dialogue that was going across half a hemisphere of the world in 12 minutes. So it's remarkable. Thank you very much.
It is remarkable. It is remarkable. And that this is the thing, the connections are amazing what they unearth. So I do hope that conversation continues outside of this forum. And then last but not least, Nadine, I'm actually going to ask you to kick off for group 3 and then give to Lisa, but very, very quick, please, because I really want to hear what John has to share with us today as well.
Nice. Thanks, Robin. Liza, please add if I miss anything. There was a strong emphasis on the need for personalizing education, bringing the heart back, looking at emotional intelligence as something as crucial, and we raised issues around including art education and art into the curriculum more, foregrounding learners with barriers to learning so that we can make schools more inclusive, foregrounding women's education, or kind of the education of the girl child in order to empower them around issues that affect them, particularly within the African context. And then the issue about how it is that we navigate between school and family, given that in the African context, there's so many demands around what families require of children, as opposed to a kind of self-centered approach to learning and teaching. Liza, if you want to just add maybe in a couple of seconds. I hope I've done some of our discussion justice, but thanks.
I think you caught almost all of it, but the only other thing was Noah was talking about 21st century skills. So so that was, we had emotional intelligence, gender equity, 21st century skills, art, and then survival skills going from the school back to the family and the farm. And each of us wanted to add those things to the curriculum.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody. That is just beautiful. Please feel free to add into the chat anything else that you feel is compelling, rich, something you feel passionate about, something that really sparked your imagination, an aha moment for you in your discussions, because we'd love to have access to all of that thinking collectively. But now we're going to hand over to a really, really special team. And I'm going to hand over to Asante. John, are you happy to pull up the slide deck on your side for the LEAP team's presentation? And then handing over to all of you, Asante, Raphael, and John.
Thank you. We'll go straight to Asanda to start with. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Asanda Skigaba. I'm from South Africa. I am 31 years old. I work for LEAP Science and Med School. So I was born in the Eastern Cape, which is the rural part of South Africa. My parents separated when I was 8, so we had to move to Cape Town so my mother could find a job to raise us. It was in 2003 when we were introduced to a possibility of a LEAP school opening for the following year. So I joined LEAP when I was doing grade 9 in 2004. And when we joined, there were 2 things that were immediately different from what I was used to as a student. One was that we were very few. So the whole class had 22 learners. And our life orientation session was done differently. So we sat in a circle with a teacher, and we would always start by doing a grounding exercise or meditation, if you like. And that would be done for maybe 3 to 5 minutes. And then after that, the question will always be, how do you feel? And I found it, to tell the truth, I found it very silly and uncomfortable, because it was always the same thing every day. We'd start with our grounding exercise, and then the question would be asked, how do you feel? And I think the first year and 2, I was not getting it. I would always say I'm fine, and of course that would be rejected. Our teacher would always say, no, dig deeper, tell the truth. How do you feel? How do you feel? And it was only when I started seeing how my peers were getting help from the conversations that we're having in that space, because it would be, how do you feel? And then everyone would share, and then we'd end up talking about everything from our issues from home, how we're doing at school, what we're not happy with, what we're happy with. So it was only when I started seeing how it was helping my peers that I also started to trust the space, and also opened up about my own issues, how I was affected by the separation of my parents, the move from the Eastern Cape to Cape Town, how I felt as a firstborn in the home, that I was always given a role that I should look after my younger siblings, how I felt about my mother always working and not really being present in the home. And then from there, that's also when I started opening up and taking part in what was happening at school outside academics. So I was involved in a choir, I started dancing, I was also a swimmer. Then towards my journey in high school, towards the end of my journey in high school, we were asked at the end of grade 11 what we wanted to do when we leave high school. And so for me, as someone who grew up in Langa, and Langa is one of the smallest townships in Cape Town, and it is also, like most townships in South Africa, a township where girls fall pregnant before they finish high school, boys get involved in gangs. So it's very rare to find someone who finishes high school without being involved in an unhealthy group or pregnancy or dropping out or getting married if you are in the villages. So even me, I was just going to school because it was something that was expected and everyone was doing it. But I never thought about what I'd do after grade 12 because the aim was to go to school because that's what is expected. And then after that, you find a job to assist the family. And that was also what my mother expected, that after grade 12, you get a job. So when we were asked what we wanted to do, it also seemed like just one of those exercises where you have to lie and say, I want to be a doctor. But our teacher pushed by saying, look at the issues around your community and decide how you want to contribute with the solutions. And that's how you figure out what you need to, or what you want to do. So it was while we were having those discussions that I also said, I want to become a social worker. I want to help other people in my community in terms of just getting hope, because in my community, the only people that we saw going to varsity were the ones that came from rich homes. But the rest of us, it was, you go to high school, you finish if you're lucky. If you don't finish, you get a job. If you are lucky. If you don't, you just remain in the township. So I joined, fortunately for us, those who wanted to become teachers. So I started off saying I wanted to become a social worker. And then with the reflections of my peers, my teacher and my principal at the time, who was John Gilmore, who's also in this, helped me understand that by becoming a social worker, I would not get to do what I wanted to do fully, because if you're a social worker, you're not guaranteed that you'll be working with young people. So he said, try teaching and major in psychology. If you don't like it, you can always fall back to social work. So that's what I did. I joined the Future Leaders program that was for people who wanted to become teachers. And immediately after grade 12, I started working in the school as a student teacher while I was studying through UNISA to get my BEd degree. And at the time, my sister and my brother were also in the school that I was in, which was great. And then while working, because I was also very involved in leadership, I became curious to try different things. But also my teachers trusted me to do certain things. So they'll always say, no, why don't you lead this? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? So I also became confident to try different things. And in 2012, that's when I was also asked to go and help start up a school in Limpopo with 2 other people. Initially, I was very scared to go to a different province because of the different cultures and languages, but also I was very young. I felt I was very young to do that move. But I did, and it helped me grow so much that I also trusted myself to do certain things, even beyond the things I thought I was capable of doing.
Sandra, just be aware of the time.
Okay. So I spent 7 years in Limpopo, and then 2019, I moved to Joburg, which is where I'm based now as a school principal. And from my journey and what I've learned is that I also try and make sure that if learners are at school, it is my responsibility with the teachers to make sure that they feel at home, to make sure that we see them as individuals, to make sure that they are happy here, because this is where they spend most of their time. If there are issues, we always try and go to their homes to see how we can work with the parents to try and help them, because that's what helped me my brother and my sister to get where I am today. Thank you.
Thank you, Asanda. Thank you very much. I'm John Gilmore. I'm a white South African who also grew up not able to answer the question, how do you feel? My privileged education taught me to think about everything and to disguise my feelings. So for me, LEAP is my journey of coming to terms with what I really am and unlearning the layers and layers of self-defense that were created by my sometimes overvalued education. And so for me, LEAP is a journey of a huge shift. And I really want to start by saying, I don't think we can change the system in any way without constantly changing ourselves. And that for me, the LEAP space is a space in which I'm changing myself and in which everyone there is invited to change themselves, because nobody can change you. So I want to share with you a very quick glimpse so that you can see the work before I ask Raphael to say something about the extension of the work. Our work focuses on self-liberation. It is each of our responsibilities to liberate ourselves, and we do that through consciousness development, tapping into the African history of consciousness and awareness. This is the context in which our schools work. This is how our children live and where they live. Our vision is to transform communities through meaningful education of children in those communities. And we have 6 schools. You can see from here that we've got 2 in the western part, southwestern part of South Africa, and 3 in the central part and 1 in the northern part. Asanda is the head of the school serving the oldest township in Gauteng, in Alexandra Township. And Raphael, who will speak later, is leading the school in Limpopo. And we work intentionally in the lowest economic quintile to show that any child can succeed, regardless of social economic circumstances. And I would say that we've proven in those communities, as you've seen from Asanda, but from numerous other young people who've come out of those communities to prove what is possible. And not to be outliers, not to be an outlier, but to be part of a collective. So if we look at our results, and yes, we would prefer to measure our results differently, but because we have to exist in the existing paradigm, we have to measure those results. And we've made it our intent to reverse the trend that says children can't go to university if they live in social, economic, challenging spaces. Nationally, only 5% of children living in the communities that we serve will have access to university. Over the years since 2005, 72% of our graduates have had access and been able to go to university. Many of them have gone on to engineering and to science and IT and various other projects. And as you heard from Asanda, we make it a conscious effort to ensure that 12% of our children move to become teachers so that we can actually develop the social movement in Africa that is required. Our methodologies are the use of the circle, the use of outdoor space, the integration of technology using the simple handheld devices. We work in the lowest economic quintile, as I've said. We work in rural and urban areas, and we develop teachers. We believe that a school is not a good school if it claims that it attracts the best teachers. A school is a good school when it can claim that it produces the best teachers. And our intention is to produce teachers who love children, teachers who don't acquire empathy, but practice it. We believe that digital integration is vital in Africa, and we cannot keep saying we have this digital divide. We have to close it, and we should close it by using cell phones as our primary digital enabler, and we've practiced doing that. We believe that it's important that education is culturally coherent and remains firmly grounded in the wisdom, the indigenous wisdom, and the knowledge of the people who make up the community. And we believe that we have to actively decolonize our own minds, not the curriculum, but decolonize our own minds, and in the process, reclaim the stolen legacies. We believe that we've come to the end of the Eurocentric head-centered education, where bureaucracy and passive learning seem to be the key elements. And that our hypothesis is that we need to focus on breakthrough consciousness. And consciousness education happens through daily, difficult conversations, where there is emotional safety, but they're not easy conversations. As you heard from Asanda, they are difficult conversations. We have a current reality of 114 million African children and youth not at school. I'm very grateful that we have in the room together with us some of our partners, and we have Asante Africa working in East Africa here. We have Alice from Eswatini, and we have Flora from Kenyan citizen and an American citizen working in San Francisco, and Anita Thorhag. And thank you for joining us as a collective global team. We cannot continue to produce unemployable people. So we've established the LEAP Institute to take the idea of self-liberation into the work, and to make sure that we work with these partners that I've mentioned, to catalyze, to pilot, to try things. And we'd love to be part of anyone's vision for working together. We don't have the answers, but we do have some of the questions which we think will help the process of co-creation. We think that the 5 key levers for change at scale in Africa are closing the digital divide by using what we've got and not longing for what we don't have. We think we have to revolutionize the way mathematics is approached, and we've started the Ubuntu Maths Institute for teachers that will actually help us to flip the mindset away from fixed mindset to growth mindset. We believe that we've got to stop waiting for laboratories to be built and create living learning laboratories in our outdoor space. And we're investing heavily in teaching regenerative thinking and practice through creating LEAP living learning laboratories. We believe that leaders need to embrace transformation, not as an event, but as a lifelong commitment. And we believe that consciousness raising is critical to the liberation that Paulo Freire envisaged for the world. So we believe we can teach people to use vertical gardens in confined spaces and to become regenerative and to become themselves entrepreneurs. We, as Raphael, who stands in this picture with his hands in the right-hand top pictures, making a point that we need to recognize learning and teaching and maths through the focus on values, the values of Ubuntu, which have already been mentioned. We believe that we've got to develop a practice of consciousness development across the continent. And we know that we are working in the most vulnerable contexts, whether they be urban or rural. And we believe we've got to teach young people to love and to care and to understand their own ability to be agents of change. And here you see our students working in their social development projects, taking care of other people in the community. I'm very grateful that we've had this opportunity just to share with you what we've developed as mindset shifts around the key levers for change. And I'm going to ask Raphael to share something of the Ubuntu approach to mathematics. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and hello, everyone. I'll just be quick in just talking about the Ubuntu Maths Institute, which is under the LEAP Institute. And really the focus on our institute is to get to answer some of the questions that we have been asking ourselves. What are the alternative teaching models that we have in Africa for Africa? Because we need to find an African solution to African challenges. And as an institute, we focus on shifting the mathematics teaching and learning practice to an integrated approach underpinned by the values of Ubuntu and driven by the emerging understanding of the opportunity of developing a growth mindset and metacognition. And we have questions that we have been asked a number of times. What kind of people, what kind of learners do we want to see coming out of our schools? And obviously everyone has got an answer to that. But the general answer to that is that we want to make sure that we produce literate, numerate, multi-skilled, confident, independent, compassionate, environmentally respectful people who are able to participate as critical and active citizens in the communities that we are in. And how do we do that? We want all our children and also the teachers to believe that all our learners can do maths to the highest level. And for us to get to that point, we need to make sure that we empower our teachers. As we have heard that there are teachers who are being trained, and some of them, they need to make sure that they understand that every learner can do mathematics to the highest level of their potential. And as an institute, we do focus on a couple of dimensions related to Ubuntu. And one of them is self-knowledge. We need our learners and teachers to have a realization that I am already a person, but I'm not complete without others. So it doesn't help to have only one person doing well when the rest of the community is suffering. And we need to start teaching our children about that so that we support each other. Ubuntu values, we are because we are, or I am because we are. The second dimension on Ubuntu is self-confidence. I know who I am and I know my value. That's what we want our learners to understand. We want our children to understand so that we can start to begin to get them to have this self-confidence. We want also to focus on resilience, and it involves working through the pain threshold. And it doesn't mean that if you experience challenges in life, then you struggle to overcome them, but they will shape you to be the person that you want to be. And the other point is on empathy. It has to do with feeling of others. One has to feel the feeling of loving others. You cannot work with people or learners unless you care for them and love them. Service. Our teachers serve, they teach, they do their work, they serve in their capacity as teachers. And they do this using the servant leadership concept, so that even the learners that they are helping, they will understand that we have teachers who love us, we have teachers who are here to save us, we have teachers who want us to be the best that we can. And we do put our emphasis on the metacognition, and a lot of work has been done by a number of researchers. And I'm quite aware that Claire did say that we have international researchers that we keep referring to, and we ignore the local ones, the ones that we live with. And I can tell you, Claire, that as Ubuntu Maths Institute, we do value the local researchers. We incorporate their work in the work that we do as Ubuntu Maths Institute. For your own information, we've got the work of Esther Mahlangu, who comes from Limpopo, and we have used their work intensively in the program. And we appreciate and acknowledge her work that she has done. So we do include those. We want our teachers to authentically engage students through developing natural desire to do stuff that provides a sense of satisfaction to our learners. We want them to be able to be sampling, exploring, self-discovery, figuring stuff out for themselves. And we also, as an institute, we want to offer our people a real change to the interaction with mathematics, trying to convince every learner that he or she is able to do maths to the highest level and develop an African identity in mathematics. And I know that there's a number of research that has been done, and we want to take pride in sharing that the work that we do in mathematics, the language of mathematics, mathematics itself, originated from Africa. And as Africans, we take pride in that. We want, we have our key ideas that define our success, as I conclude. Every participant who attend our program to finish convinced that every learner every learner has the ability to do mathematics at the highest level. And we want our teachers who go through our program to end or to finish the program believing that, yes, it is possible. Yes, our learners can do it and they are capable. We want also to have learning mathematics being a social activity that people understand that we can be active and we can have the social activity being incorporated as part of that, which can be formed by also the Ubuntu philosophy. We also check our success based on what we want everyone to understand how our brains work, which is also on the work that was done by, we have got a professor that did a research on that, Dr. Sandra Maguire, who did that as well. And we also focus on the growth mindset, mindset and fixed mindset. And we've got a lot of work that was done by Professor Carol Dweck, and we've got the work that was also done by Joe Bola and Hattie. And all those researches, they help us in shaping our Ubuntu Maths Institute, in empowering teachers so that they will be able to deliver and help learners understand and learn mathematics better as an alternative way, as an alternative model to teaching mathematics in Africa. We lastly want to make sure that we find practical ways of developing learning opportunities in our classrooms. And that's what we do as a Ubuntu Maths Institute, and which is under the LEAP Institute. So that's in brief what the Maths Institute is all about and the work that we are doing. And we thank all our partners who support us, who are working with us. And we believe that what we have started is something that will go, we can do that and multiply the work that we're doing in a number of African countries and make sure that we support the teachers and the learning that they offer to the learners in the African continent. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Raphael. That's beautiful. Andrew.
So much, Raphael. Yes, thank you so much, Raphael, from the LEAP Institute. We have learned a lot. And from the audience, maybe concerns, maybe questions, maybe your contributions, you can contribute. The floor is yours. In the next 5 minutes, we can invite concerns or contributions or questions from the whole team now.
I see there is a question from Nadine saying, you know, why does public education not learning from these models? And I, you know, I don't want to blame or to shame or to say anything about a system that is really wounded and the people in it are wounded. So I don't think this takes early adoption. It takes people to try, people to believe what is possible, and deal with their own surrender of their assumptions. It's a very difficult thing. I don't think the bureaucracy of our country is really looking outward for the solution. I think they keep looking out to other countries or to new systems or to new curriculum and really don't want to embrace the consciousness element because it's so exposing. It's exposing for us personally.
Joyce Malombe, your contribution, your concerns on the alternative education models for Africa. Joyce Malombe.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I have no concerns, if I can put it that way. This is music to my ear. I would say that, as you have said, it is a way of thinking, and you cannot really produce something from what is not. And I like what you just said now, that the systems are wounded, and until we can really, you know, we shift the thinking to be able to deal with that wounding, I don't think we are able to deal with this issue. And so the mathematics that was being talked about didn't remove from mathematics itself, but it is an approach that starts from where people are, gets people to discover from where they are, and from there grow, because all of us have the potential to grow. So I'm very interested in trying to see, when you think about expanding this to the rest of Africa, what your thoughts are. I am very particularly interested in the issue of leadership. I just, I think we need to start to think how do we lead a different way in education. And the only way that transformative leadership that you are talking about, I'd like to hear more about what is in it, what you are thinking, because you really can't, you can't ask people to be what they are not. The other thing is, I think there's maybe you can also tell us something about how you got to this, because we grew through the same systems. How did you get a change of mind to think this way, so that you can be able to go and explore, because you are taking some very big risks, and maybe it takes a long time for people to believe you. So how do we turn ourselves so that others can turn with us, so that we can transform? Thank you. This is really amazing. It was the same concept expressed earlier on by the young lady from Nigeria, who I believe is going places. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joyce, for your contributions and for your support. Lisa, look, then we go to breakout rooms. Lisa, look, 1 minute.
Okay. I've been taking things in rather than thinking about saying anything, so I'm not sure what to say. I'm excited, and I guess one of the things that I think is really important in looking at what is coming out of Africa, as compared to from the West and the North, looking at what we can bring into Africa, which is in some senses more colonization. So that's one area that I'm asking about. The another thing, I'm very much fixated on this question of if one is in survival mode and one is trying to figure out how you're going to take care of yourself and your family in the next week or the next month. In the LEAP Institute and the LEAP schools, if the students are coming from extreme poverty, how does LEAP deal with that, so that the kids have a chance to take a breath and begin to think about going outward instead of thinking about their own survival? Do any of you want to?
Thank you. Thank you, Liza.
Look, in a short answer, we feed our children, always know there's food available, and we provide hot lunches, and we make sure that breakfast is accessible for those in need and so on. So that's something which becomes part of the idea that the village, the school is the village now. The school needs to be the place where it is safe, and it's a place where you can come and take food home if you need food at home. So that's an important aspect. But I do just want to make one point, and steal just this half moment to say, the issue here, we must not project this outwards. If you want, my story is that I had to realize I am the problem. And that once I could start to own that and realize what I truly represent by thinking that I'm more important in other people's lives and projecting my solutions onto people, that was very painful. And I had to learn that by going to funerals of sportsmen that I was coaching and not having difficult conversations with. So the unlearning for me was to think that I can be selective as a father, and to understand I have to put my whole self into the space of teaching and learning. And in that place, be vulnerable, not strong. Be strong in my vulnerability, but not to hide my vulnerability, which of course is what I had been taught to do. So I do want to put that word vulnerability. It's a personal journey for the transformer. The transformative leader makes a personal transformation, which is an ongoing, endless, painful, beautiful, liberating process.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you. So thank you, everybody. That LEAP team, that was just breathtakingly inspiring, so wonderful. And I'd like to invite us again into some breakaway rooms together, just so that we can process this at an individual level with a couple of us together. And my hope is that the two things that we could look at in our breakaway rooms are what kind of an education system would allow for this decolonization of the mind and for regenerative humanizing learning to take place. And then more importantly than that, without waiting for that system to come into being, how could we incorporate this now where we are? So I'm going to break us back into breakaway rooms again, and we will look forward to having a great new conversation after we come back. We'll have we've got half an hour left of our formal time, so we'll have 12 minutes again in the breakaway rooms, and then when we come back, I really would love if we could have an opportunity to hear from other people who are also doing remarkable things on our continent. Just snippets of what else, where else. So I'm opening the rooms now. I will stay in the main room to help anybody that's trapped, and then I'll join a room somewhere along the line. So enjoy your conversations. Okay, Karen, Ernan, Theo, Ellie, Silvana, Kolawole, just shout if you need a hand at all. If you go down into the bottom, in the bottom right-hand corner of the Zoom tab, you'll see 4 blocks, which indicates the breakaway rooms. If you click on that, it'll show you which room you've been invited to. But if you're battling, you can just unmute and ask me for a hand. Sorry.
How we can implement it on our personal level, like how we can move it into action. I think Robin has just joined us. Maybe she can elaborate on that.
No need to elaborate. You got it perfectly, Ellie. How, without waiting for a different system to come along, how can we start to implement some of the things that we think really are necessary where we are?
I think how we can...
Pardon, my network is low.
I think how we can start implementing some of these things that we are discussing to change education system in Africa as a whole, it starts with us. Let the change come from us, the teachers. How are we gonna teach our learners? What is it that we want to do that we have to do differently to change this scenario? And through that, we will be able to implement the curriculum that we want, because we are key stakeholders in the education. When it fails, we fail. When it thrives, we thrive. So we really must make a follow-up, have policies that will bring guidelines to make sure that those these new things that we are bringing up to decolonize education and humanize it will be implemented through the policies that we put in place. Thank you.
Yes, Claire, I think I agree with you in that note, because for me, what is important is that now I'm just going to borrow from Margaret Archer, looking at culture, structure, and agency. I feel that we should exercise our agency to change the culture, number one, and the structures that exist, because if we haven't changed those two things, the culture and the structure hinders moving forward, because for example, the policies which act as a culture, as a structure that prevents change, for example, in terms of decolonization, if you speak decoloniality, yet the policy does not agree to decolonization, it becomes an issue. So we colleagues have a responsibility to actually ensure that we exercise our agency in changing these things, the culture and the structure, so that we can be able to realize what we are talking about here. Because again, you know, the issue of decoloniality, trying to make sure that we Africanize, it should be treated with caution, because it might also present certain danger if we focus too much on decolonization and then neglecting the most important part, which is also internalization, because it's also very important that we do not neglect that part. I don't know if colleagues, you can still hear me. My headphones just disappeared. I think they just showed me that my battery is less than 2%. I'm not sure if you can still hear me.
Yes, we can, but dash it all, I hope your battery gets onto charge quickly.
We can't hear you.
Because I want you to say that again later, Tommy. Oh. I think what you're saying is so true. The threat of the D, which is let's take away, instead of really thinking, and I think it's necessary. So there's a necessity about clearing things so that we can see. But then what's more important than that is for what, to regenerate what, to include what. So that's a really great comment. Wonderful. I'm going to have to.
Maybe.
Yep, carry on. Ellie?
Maybe I wanted to say something like, you know, in Africa, what I've seen happening is we come up with very good models, but we don't involve our communities. We don't, like some models, even they don't involve teachers. So you'll find like looking at the model of Ubuntu in South Africa and the one from Nigeria, it was so much attached to the communities, and that makes the community and the teachers, like the South African one, they say that they started the system by looking at the teachers. And when the teachers pick up a system with the heavyweight and the high voltage that is required, it brings out the best. So that should be the genesis of implementation, which should be linked to the system, to the communities, so that the communities, when the communities see an impact, they will automatically support the systems.
Fantastic. That's really fabulous. I think we lost Tommy. I think that his phone died. So sad. Wonderful. Thanks, guys. It was really nice to be able to listen in with you. And I hope you enjoyed today's session.
We did.
Great. I'll see you on the other side.
Okay. Bye.
Welcome back, everybody. So, as usual, the 2.5 hours is flown by. We've got 15 minutes left of our time together. And so in the last 15 minutes, we'd really love to hear, and Abdelaziz is going to kind of guide us a little bit. Andrew and I will look out for any hands up. People can help us. But just firstly, some reflections on things that you heard in the room or thoughts that you've had, some excitement you sense about maybe what can we do right here and now to bring some of these concepts into our own practice. But secondly, also, if there are others, and I know there are others on this call who are working with alternative models in their own context, please, just to give you an opportunity, brief, unfortunately, 60 seconds maybe, just to share what are you doing in your context? What have you heard that resonates? What excites you? So let's start with a little bit of feedback from people who've been in the rooms together and have been excited by what they've heard. Just put your hands up if you'd like to share, please.
Geoffrey has raised his hand. Geoffrey Sagaki.
Yes, please. From the group where I was, one critical thing that was raised is about the leadership. That, for instance, the example raised was about the LEAP initiative. How can it be transformative that other players are coming in to see that this idea is moving to other areas? Then we also have one coming in about the policies from governments. Governments need to so much accommodate other players to come in and also offer ideas to see that the policies can match the modern times. Then there was also one on Africa Best, that much of the content that is being covered around education, that content was about 30, 40, 50 years. It may have made us, but is it still relevant? It should be Africa Best, focusing on Africa. Those were a few views coming in from my team.
Thank you so much, Geoffrey. I see Chakri nominated Nadia, Robin. Chakri nominated Nadia.
Yep, Nadia.
Hi. Nadia said she had to leave.
Yes. Hi, Nadia.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yes. So, well, thank you for today. It was very inspiring. I think that we kind of talked about how, systems could be more local and community centered and anchored in nature as well, so that the experiential learning is anchored in the living of actually taking care of, life and the living, and really happening in an environment that is safe and in conditions that are life conducive, that's allow the flourishing of our children. And that's, as John has said, that the teachers can go with the loving heart to take care of and to facilitate the learning. What can happen at the systems level, we're not quite sure if we can wait for systems to figure, national systems at least, to figure themselves out. But there is clearly movements happening around community learning ecosystems, which is really powerful because they're place-based and they can really leverage the heritage and the richness of communities and of the indigenous knowledge. So, yeah, definitely new types of learning is emerging, and we can follow the learner. We can trust and have faith that they can actually create their own curriculum, but that we can be humble enough to be there to hold and to guide. So, and I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nadia. Claire, then Asanda, in that order.
Yeah, thank you once more. I just wanted to add on to something that I thought we ought to have included, but we didn't discuss because of time. I was feeling that public partnership will also enhance internationalization and would catalyze the implementation process of the curriculum, because when we go with private partners, they push and have some resilience to make sure that whatever policies we have are really implemented. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. BD, you've been nominated to speak on behalf of Antoinette.
I will.
That's what happens when you nominate other people, Biddy. Comes back to bite.
All right, there's no problem. So I will take a few minutes also to share in our group 2. So we had Macnon, we had Antoinette, we had Themba. So simply we were talking about, we really acknowledge having a model like the LEAP schools, what they're doing, great work. If it can be taken to other parts of the world, in other parts of Africa, I think it will be helpful. Number 2, we talked about decolonization of the mind, because we have different systems that are currently running in different parts of Africa, and people are at their comfort zone. So taking them from where they think this is the working system and it has its own fault, but have accepted it, it takes a lot of awareness. And number 3, also, I think I will borrow from Macnon that we need a model that creates independence, or you take the interests of the candidates. And from Wambua, we were talking about not taking exams as a cutoff. Like, we have to identify these children. He gave an example of the Kenyan system, like it's exam-based. So you fail an exam, it defines your life. This should not be the case. We should attract things like vocational training in some way. I think with those few remarks, I will give opportunity to other people to contribute, but those are the few things.
Thank you, BD. Thank you, BD. Asande, you are nominated to share your views.
Okay. So we talked about the possibility of making the curriculum relatable to learners. An example of the subject history was given, where instead of teaching learners history that is maybe the US history to African kids, we should teach them the history of our country or our continent so that they can relate to it. And we also talked about the changing the mindset of teachers, and try and allow them to shift from assuming that learners are clueless, or they don't know anything, where it's always a teacher that is expected to be giving them information, and actually go to a space where learners are trusted that they can take charge of their own learning and they can rely on themselves and the peers. Thank you.
Fantastic. And then Andrew, I see you were nominated last.
I see Anna and Theo and Yusuf have nominated me. And I'll touch on 3 points which emerged in our discussion. We said that we have to understand that we are in a new age, and we cannot operate as if we are operating in 20th century. We are in 21st century, and the teaching and learning has to be progressive. Days are gone when students were raising hands to give short answers. This is the time for us to be practical in the way we teach. This is the time for us to practice, to follow practice chasing theory, which talks about the best teaching and learning methodologies. And we also talked about everybody being a learner in this new age. Gone are those days when the teacher will come into classroom and dictate and go away. He comes to classroom, locks the door, teaches, and disappears. Those days are no more. This is the era whereby, in as much as we talk about the students being learners, even the teachers themselves have to be learners as well. Because COVID has skilled all of us in so many ways. And so that is something we as teachers have to understand, that you're operating in a new decade, we are operating a new century, and we are having a battle of the decade, which is COVID-19. And it's only through communal, it's only through concerted efforts that we can overcome the wicked challenges in education.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. So Grace, I see your hand is up, but before we come to you, Lisa raised a point in the chat around local history, so hyper-local history. And I'm going to ask Karima to speak to it briefly. And I'm going to ask Karima really to reflect on something that we shared a couple of sessions ago around a school in South Africa where the history teacher got the children in the school to go and do community story writing and ask the oldest people they could find in their community to share their stories. And they brought these back and they compiled a book of their community's history, which is just the most beautiful, very empowering concept and gives such a powerful sense of what history is about. And I know that Karima has been engaged in something similar in her community. So Karima, if I can ask you to speak to that, and then we'll hear from Grace afterwards. Karima Wajani.
So, yes. Sorry.
No problem.
I'm sorry. I was having a problem with the sound. Can you repeat your question?
Surely. I had just asked if you would share. Lisa spoke in the chat group about hyper-local history and getting our children to really find the stories from their own community and write and understand their own community history. And I know you've been doing a little bit of that. I thought if you could share quickly, and then we'll hear from Grace after you.
Okay. So the idea is so simple. As according to all the discussions we have been having during all the sessions, we believe that we can develop a concept of educating and teaching our children and youth via our rich and really diversified folk tales and cultural heritage. For instance, from a story, we can build a series of activities in teaching them the language, speaking, creative artwork, civic values via either individual or group work, and at the same time integrate them in the school and class community. And this can be done everywhere in our continent. It's inclusive because from this cultural heritage that we all own, we can teach and include our children either in poor rural areas or children in difficult situations or in a city. So this is the idea of the concept, and we are working with the team, with Ruth and Tino, a number of our collaborators, and also in coordination with Robin, Aziz and Andrew, in developing and elaborating this concept. So we are all welcome to join in and work together to develop this concept. Thank you.
Thank you. Grace. You can pop your video on, then I can profile you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm not very far from what others have just said. What I was supporting, like what other people have just said, that it's true, we can't just say, we need to do something. And from me, myself, be working with First Women Council in Tanzania, we are part of the big forum in Tanzania called the Relive, the Regional Education Learning Initiatives. It's a big forum where we could talk a lot of education matters. So I said earlier that we should think like, how are we going to introduce life skills as one of the core subjects at schools, because a lot of students are finishing up from Form 1 to Form 4, and they are going home. And how they are mentioned as the brave students is when they pass well during their national exams. Means failing out is the end to the student. And when the child comes back to the communities, she can't cope well with the communities because she has spent almost most of the time at school. So introducing life skills could increase self-reliance opportunities to the child. So we are still trying out to do how are we going to introduce the life skills. And I'm really glad because in Tanzania, all throughout our East Africa initiatives, a lot have been done. We have started out the assessments on the life skills, and we are doing it up to the bottom, to the communities. What do they like? What do they think will be the best to their communities? So I just wanted to share that we have those opportunities, the forums, the community meetings, and the education stakeholders are always most important, be invited to these meetings. So we could use those forums to educate on changing the good models of our education system. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Grace. John needs to jump off. Andrew, just hold on a sec. John needs to jump off. And so I'm going to ask for us just to unmute. Give John a round of applause. He and his LEAP team, please. Sunday and Raphael, thank you so much. And John, just to ask you to say a last word of farewell before you jump off. We will keep the meeting open. We'll first hear from you, Sufi, after you've spoken, John, and then we'll close.
Thank you. This has been a humbling and a wonderful experience to connect across Africa. And it feels to me like a personal kind of journey of graduation of some kind. And I just commend the team that has put this together and know that we will do everything in our power to help build this community and see what we can generate from it, because it surely in this group lie the solutions that everybody is questing for. So thank you. Thank you very, very much to everyone.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. Wonderful. So Yusfi, if you would like to you had your hand raised. We'll close after Yusfi formally, but we will keep the meeting open for an extra 20 minutes to half an hour if people just want to chat. But we know people do have to leave as well, and our time commitment was to 7:30. So Yusfi, if you'd like to share, then we'll play us out with a little music.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Whitaker. I just want to congratulate every one of us for this wonderful meeting we're having this evening. It's evening time in Morocco, and I think it seems more like of a humble moment where we, as teachers, educators in general, feel that we have a mission, the mission of investing in education rather than in teaching. We are not anymore interested in school curriculums which are oriented towards serving examinations rather than investing in life curriculum or curricula where we have to invest in a human being, making or shaping the human being of the future. It's time for us to live collectively and lead a happy life rather than a technical life with a well-shaped body of instructions from someone who wants to serve a specific mission of a kind of industry. We want to be ourselves. We want to live together, serving each other, helping each other, colonizing the mind. And by colonizing the mind, I mean we should first of all colonize ourselves for teaching towards examination, but rather decolonizing and becoming, the natural human beings we are, to live together, come together, and enjoy life together. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to exchange our ideas across the continent and also, globally, people who are joining us from different parts of the globe. And I'm very glad and honored to be a member of your team. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And then I'm going to pull the video up. We're going to sing ourselves out. Please, everybody who can, put your cameras on, and whoever can take a screenshot. I'm not one of those who's able to do that. Please do for us, and you can send it on the group to us, please.
Thank you, Robin. And Grace talked about training, and they are doing an amazing job. And as we come to closure, I wanted to ask Joyce Malone to give a final word. Then we come to the close of the session. Joyce Malone.
Sorry, what did you want me to say?
I'm saying you give us the final word as we come to the end of the session.
I think, yeah, I think it has already been said. This work that is going on LEAP is going to revive our souls and bring us back to be grounded and liberate ourselves as we liberate Africa. I think there is no shortcut. And while this thing means different things to different people, we just need to get to work. So it was such a privilege to be here, to hear the speakers and be in the meetings with different people, you know, but this is a calling to a change of mindset. This is also a calling to waking up and not waiting for the solutions to come from anywhere. We all know the saying that we are the ones we are waiting for. Now, just the fact that you are in this meeting today, you do have a role to play, just like I do. So I really appreciate hearing you, and you are the hope of the change that must take place. It's not going to come from curriculums or the government or whatever. It's going to come from you and you figuring out, after you have discovered yourself, how to engage with the process, with the reality that we must now, with most of the children in Africa, not learning. We can't wait. It is an emergency. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We are the change. We are the change. And Robin, before you now come to the final word, maybe Silvana was in Morocco, and maybe she can spare 1 minute.
Andrew, let's play ourselves out, and then whoever is keen to wait, because we need to give the people who need to go the opportunity to leave graciously. And Silvana does have some beautiful words to share, I'm sure, regarding her time with Karima in Morocco. But I think let's offer our audience the opportunity to say cheers. So you're welcome to unmute and to say cheers, and we will play us out. Those who need to leave can leave. Those who'd like to stay and chat a little longer, we'll keep the call open for another 20 minutes or so.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank
you.
Cheers, colleagues.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.